Hi guys, good morning. My name is Kaylee Trippett. I am a photographer based out of the Treasure Coast of Florida, available for travel in Florida and throughout the U.S. Today, you're going to join me as I edit some photos. I'm going to take you to my website here and let you see my face. Hi, this is me. Yay! And I'm also going to use my gallery here to show you what we're working with. So I'm going to come down here to this gallery, and my purpose for editing today is that as photographers, we we do sessions and we do shoots and things, and we grow. You know that as a photographer that you are always going to grow in your skills. You're going to grow in your style. There's a lot of things that you can grow and flourish in your ability as a photographer. And I'm going to actually go and revisit this session here that I did back in February of this year. This session was super special to me because it had been floating around in my mind for a little while, the concept of images paired with Bible scripture, and just the dress and the location and things. Just some of the images had been floating around in my mind for a really long time. It was really special to me. And then the other part was that I had just gotten a new camera, and I was so excited to test out the ability of the camera and see how it reflected my skills, my style, and just this vision that I had for this photo shoot. So you can see, like, I love this photo shoot. This turned out absolutely beautiful. I was so proud to have made these images and to have done this. But to be really honest with you, I was so excited about having the camera that I really did not take the time to properly edit these, and I actually edited them using the VSCO app on an iPad. So that's wild to me because I think they're beautiful, but at the same time, not really for professional work. I would, not in this day and age recommend that you use an iPad or an iPhone for professional work. It may come to that one day, but just for today, I don't think so. Not for me. So these are the images beforehand. Since you grow in photography, you can go back and revisit photo shoots all the time and reflect on what you could have done differently, or maybe what you didn't do right, or your personal preferences and things. And like I said, I think these photos are beautiful and I'm so proud of them. My style has evolved. My editing style for sure has evolved. So I'm actually going to revisit these photos and edit them according to my current editing style and more along the path that I'm taking with the style of my photography, more a couple of steps forward on the path that I'm heading towards, which to be honest, straightforward, is hybrid between film and digital. So I just started shooting film not too long ago, and I'm going to kind of edit these not really with a film look in mind, but more a little bit more natural and just very basic. I don't like to edit too much, so we're going to hop over to Lightroom over here, and these are the raw images without any editing whatsoever. I've picked out 6 of them so that you can walk through editing with me. Okay, so here are first, second, third, and then fourth, fifth, sixth. It's taking a little bit to load, so we're not going to waste any time loading the rest of those. We'll get to those eventually. All right, so here's our image here. I'm not a big preset person, although you see a bunch of presets over here on the left. I'm just going to use a really basic preset here that is going to adjust my highlights, shadows, exposure, and contrast mostly. Okay, so that just edited my those 4 elements there. I'm actually going to bring this up a little bit to my liking. I think I like that right there. And then I'm going to come down here to lens corrections, and although they have profile here, I'm going to do manual and control my vignetting by hand. I like the way that I can control it when I do it by hand. So I'm just going to push it and see what looks okay. Down here at the bottom, you can see that without my vignetting, I kind of blew out down here at the bottom, so I'm going to take it back down just a little bit to where it looks more natural, and that looks good to me. Okay, so I edited my exposure already, and that looks good, or it looks okay for me right now. I actually might bump it up just a little bit more. Okay, perfect. Now, the key to photos that I did not take into consideration the key to, like, attractive photos these days, or just fixing photos in general when you edit them. I did not pick up on this when I did the original photo shoot at first, but the key is work that temperature slider. I didn't really consider that at all or think about that whenever I did these images the first time. So when you go back, they're all very cold. They're beautiful, but cold. Especially this one. This looks so cold to me. Like, she has beautiful skin tone. She has a really beautiful, just facial features and things, but this is so cold. So I'm going to take my temperature. I'm just going to use my slider here. Sometimes I switch back and forth between bumping up the numbers, over here in this little box, but I like to do the slider to see what's too much and what's not enough, so I'm going to bring this over. Okay, and there's way too much there, and there's way too cold there, so I'm actually going to start at 0 again and bring it on up, and I think that looks good right there. Yeah, that looks good to me. I'm actually going to bring that up to 15. That looks good. So I just fixed this warmth here, and I really, really love the way this looks, but you can tell that some of our blues in the ocean and the sky kind of lost their integrity a little bit. So I'm going to go down to my blues here, and I'm going to bump up my saturation in my blues so that maybe I can bump a little bit of color back into the water back there. There isn't very much blue going on in her dress or in her skin, obviously, so I'm safe whenever I bump up my blues here. Yeah, I think it looks really good. I'm going to take a little bit of aqua as well, and I'm going to bump that up too in my saturation. And hue-wise, I'm going to bump that up to more blue here. Oh yeah, that looks really, really good. So I worked in the HSL panel over here, which is hue, saturation, and luminance. That's a very, very nice little box to work in. It's key to editing and controlling your colors and things, especially skin tone. I like to work in yellow, orange, and red when I start to control my skin tone. If you feel like there's a little bit too much orange going on here or too much red, you can take down your oranges a little bit. I actually already have the preset set to -10. So her skin was a little bit orange naturally. So I'm just going to kind of keep on taking it down a little bit. And yeah, I think that looks much, much better. Okay, so that looks pretty good to me. I'm going to look at the image by itself. Yeah, that's beautiful to me. Perfect. And yep, there's your side by side. That looks good to me. Okay, let's move on to our next one. Okay. Oh, I love this picture. Isn't she beautiful? I love it. This is Lauren, by the way. She is a girl who lives around here. Her forte mostly is cosplay and all kinds of cool superhero costumes and events and things. She makes a lot of her costumes by hand, which is gorgeous. So this is a little bit out of her element, but I think that she works it. Like, you can't tell, like, at all. So I'm so happy to have had her as one. I actually worked with her again in a photo shoot after this, and she did wonderful as well. Okay, let's add that basic preset there, which again controls your highlight, shadows, exposure, and contrast, and it brightened things up a lot. I'm going to switch things up this time, and I'm going to go do my lens corrections before I do anything else, just so I can have control over that. So again, you can tell I'm a little bit blown out down here around the corners, so I'm going to take it down just a little. I'm not going to use the full 100%. I'm going to take it down a little. Yep, and it looks a lot better. Okay, I'm going to push my exposure. Woo, too bright. Okay, that looks good. And then again, the magic key is this temperature up here. So I'm going to take my temperature and, oh my goodness, she's alive. I'm so pumped. All right, cool. So there you go. If you feel like her skin tone is a little bit bright for you, I'm actually going to come down to my yellows here and take down some yellows, and then take down our oranges just a little bit more. Yep, and that evens out her skin tone marvelously. That's perfect. Okay, and then there is the finished image there. Yeah, cool. And that looks good to me. Let's move on. So I hope you're getting the swing of this so far. Mostly the order of editing that I'm using here is applying that basic preset, bumping up exposure a little bit, and then fixing that temperature. That's pretty much all it is. So before I start this picture, I want to address how beautiful the ocean looks here and that ombre sky looks. And I'm going to see if I can try to retain that just a little bit. Because it was just so beautiful that afternoon. There was plenty of light, and there was a pretty effect going on in the sky behind her, and the water was just glowing. It was gorgeous. So, okay, so let's apply that basic preset. And I see a lot of vignetting going on down here, so I'm actually going to come down to my lens corrections and do my vignetting fix like right away. So yes, that's perfect. That just makes the picture look so much more real, kind of lifelike, I guess. If you have vignetting and stuff going on here, I love vignetting on some pictures, but pretty much if I'm doing portraits like this, I want to keep it as realistic as possible. So did my lens correction, and I'm going to come back up, and this is pretty bright. I'm not going to bump up my exposure too much because I might blow out a couple of places, especially in her dress, so maybe just one click. I'm starting over here at plus 0.85, and I'm going to go up to almost one full stop overexposed, so I'm not going to bump that up too much. And then finally, my temperature. I'm going to bring that up just a little bit, because if I do it too much, I'm going to lose the integrity of the sand, the color of the sand, and the water, and the water begins to take on this nasty greenish tone. So less is more, guys. Honestly, I started at 0, which already like looked okay. Ooh, let me get back down to 0 over here. 0 in my temperature, which kind of looked okay, but I wanted to warm it up some, and I'm just going to warm it up plus... I'm going to keep it at plus 7. That looks okay to me. Again, I want to keep the integrity of my blues, so I'm actually going to come over to my blue in my HSL panel and bump up my saturation. And these color palettes and hues work so in my favor when I edit like this, because there's not a lot of blue going on in her skin tone, in her dress. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of just general blue in the picture. It was a cool picture. Once I warmed it up, it took away a lot of those surface blues, a lot. So I felt really, really good about that. I'm going to bring that up just a little bit more. Yeah, and so that those blues are retained a lot more. I have not done this yet. I didn't practice editing this photo, but I said I wanted to retain the integrity of this kind of ombre sky over here. So I'm going to come to my yellows maybe and bring it back up to a 0 to see if that affects that sky a little bit. Let's see, my yellows brought up. Yeah, my yellow didn't do much. That didn't do much. So I think that bumping up my blues did a lot more for me than anything else. So I think I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it at that. Yeah, if I bump up my oranges, my skin might be a little bit too orange there. So for the most part, I just want to keep this very simple and very untouched, almost as natural as possible, because you know, editing can get out of hand sometimes. So I'm actually going to leave this as is, and to be honest, there wasn't really much to work with in the sky in the first place. So I'm actually going to come up here and I'm going to see what I can do in the way of straightening the photo a little bit. Yeah, that looked a little bit off to me, so I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to crop this photo to 4:3, and that looks... I'm going to get her right, line up that top line with the horizon. Yep, perfect. And done. And good. Awesome. So there's the before and the after. And there's the finished photo. I hope I'm being a good narrator right now. I feel like I'm getting into the zone with editing here, and I hope that I'm still commentating. It's commentating this well. So if I'm not, whoops, sorry. Okay, here is our split panel, and I'm going to, again, this is very easy. I'm going to add my basic preset here, and that brighten things up. Take care of my vignetting by sliding that slider over. Yep, that looks good. And bring it back up. Take care of my my exposure some. Nope, a little too bright. Cool. And then my warmth, but not by much. I don't want the picture to be too yellowy. Oh, this is perfect. I love this because the blues are still retained back there, even though that I messed with the temperature slider a little bit. The blues are retained really well. Okay, so I'm noticing with this picture here, I'm going to zoom in on her a little bit. Don't she look so pretty? From far away, I'm kind of noticing that there are a couple of high shadows here that are real pink or really red, and I try to keep an eye out for stuff like that. So I'm going to do red, and I'm going to slide it down just a little. Oh, that's perfect. Thank you. So I can see now that there's no red in the corner of her arm. There's no, her lips aren't like super, super red anymore. They're just the perfect shade. And just for good measure, I'm going to take down my orange just a little bit, just for good measure. And that looks good to me. Yep. And there's our side by side. Beautiful. I love it. I think I actually might see what it looks like when I crop it. Let's do auto straighten and see what, nope, no straightening needs to be done. And then 4x3. Yep, that looks much better. It's not as much sky. So I do want to address in a couple of these photos that I've just edited a posing tip or a framing tip, kind of like your composition. One thing that I really messed up on, it was kind of hard to avoid, to be honest, but on photos like this one here, I kind of got her head being split in half by the horizon line, and so just a point of reflection, it's a little bit harsh to me that I can see the horizon line going through her head, so next time I would try to kind of fix that and avoid that. Okay, ooh, I love this picture. So here is split frame. I'm going to add basic, come down to my vignetting and take care of all of my edges over here. Yep, that looks good. Okay, I'm already seeing straight off that her skin is super orange. This is whenever the sun was starting to set and things were getting a little bit dark out, and so I'm shooting at ISO 400 now, and I was on a 50mm lens shooting wide open at 1.8 at 1/2500th of a second. So it was still pretty bright, but the sun itself was kind of going down over the horizon behind her, like this way over here. So I'm going to brighten it up a lot and kind of bring back some of that light. Right there looks good. And then I'm going to take care of tint first. So I don't know if you can see it like I do, but I see a lot of hot skin tones here, and then there's a little bit of a flush to the sand down here, a little bit of like magenta almost. So I'm actually going to help her skin tone out a little bit by messing with my tint slider. And I'm going to slide it towards the green over here because purple and green are opposite complementary colors, so they kind of cancel out one another, kind of like concealer and whatnot. So I'm going to bump this down just a little. Perfect. And -5, that takes care of that, at least for now. And I'm going to bump up my warmth. Oh yeah, that looks super good, super natural. Okay, and the last thing that needs to be done, obviously, is skin toner. She looks super red, kind of lobstery. So I'm going to come over here to my orange and my red. Those are the two that I'm going to deal with. And I'm going to take down the orange a little bit, and then her reds a little bit. I'm actually going to take that way, way down. Yeah, that looks good. And honestly, you just got to play with it a little bit and see what kind of looks good, what looks good to you. And practice, you got to hone in your skin tone eye, I guess. Skin tone is one of the hardest things to master, and I'm still not perfect at it, but just working at it and practicing, is just the key to developing an eye for it. I'm going to bring down her orange a little bit more here and try not to make her look gray and washed out. So yeah, that looks a little bit better. And then my yellow, I'm going to take all the way down to like 50. Yep, and there we go. That looks good. I'm going to I'm going to step over to these blues over here because there is a lot of blue again going on. I want to retain some of the blues. The water's looking kind of gray to me right now. So I'm going to bring up saturation on my blues. Yeah, and then bring over my hue to be a little bit more blue. Nope, actually, you know what? Actually, I kind of like the that aqua color a little bit. I think that looks okay. And then aqua-wise, we have a lot of aqua in the water right here. I'm actually going to bring that up just a little bit and then bring it towards the blue side. Okay, yeah, that looks pretty good to me. One more thing I want to do is that while I did mess with the tint here to take out some of that magenta and purpley kind of look in the sand here, I still see a little bit and it bothers me a little bit. So I'm going to come down here to the magenta and I'm going to bump down the saturation. Yep, and that took care of that. Perfect. I don't see as much magenta in the sand. And there is my finished product there. There's before and after. And there we go. Looks good to me. Perfect. Okay, next is going to be, actually last, oh, we're about to say goodbye. Last is going to be this picture here, and I'm so in love with this picture. This is so much fun. Someone told me one time that it looked like a skincare picture. Meg, if you're watching this, that's you, girlfriend. Someone told me it looked like a cool, like, foundation magazine ad. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of my vignetting down here and bring that up. I applied that basic preset already. And I'm going to push up my exposure like a lot because there's a specific look I want to this. I think this picture is a little bit more on the creative side, so I have some liberty to actually make it a more creative photo instead of like a technically correct photo, you know. So I'm going to push my exposure to about there. Yep, that looks good. And it looks kind of warm already, but I'm still going to push the warmth a little bit. I'm going to still warm it up some. Oop, gotta grab that slider. Oh wow, see how that just changes things so much? Oh, they look so good, wow. So there, I went and pushed my temperature up a little bit. If it's a little bit orange for you, which I think that this fits the photo just fine, but just in case, I'm gonna bring down my orange just a little bit. I think that in this case, the orange adds a little bit of color to her skin. If I take down the orange too much, she looks, it looks flat. So I only pulled down my orange just a little bit. And I love that little sun flare right there. It caught a little bit of the sun. Keep an eye on your vignetting if you do it manually. I see it's getting a little bit white down here, so I'm going to come over and reduce that just a little bit and make it a little more realistic down there around the corner. So make sure you watch that if you use that setting often. I took it down a little bit and made it plus 23. And I think that looks good. I think that looks all right. Look at that difference. There's my full photo. And before and after. Cool. I'm going to come back to, which one? This one? Really quick. After you get done editing your photos, I encourage you to kind of go back for one more scan, you know, and just see if there's anything that you might have missed or anything that you wanted to do to it that you might have missed. So I'm going to come here and I'm actually going to see, yep, I straightened that one. Good. I'm going to go through and make sure there's no straightening that needs to be going on. So I'm going to click over here to straighten. Yep, and it straightened that just fine. I think that's pretty straight for now. That looks okay. And then we just went through those other three. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, this kind of a walkthrough of editing photos. I really encourage you to go back to some of your other photo shoots that maybe weren't so good, or maybe ones that you've done a long time ago or something, and kind of have fun editing them again. I've kind of gotten into the mood of revisiting photo shoots that I've done before just to keep practicing on them. I think that old photo shoots are perfect for continuing to practice your editing skills and your eye for certain things like skin tone and temperature and stuff that, you know, if you're like me, that you haven't really paid much attention to before. So I I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and keep an eye out for some more in the future. I'm really excited to introduce this format of screen recordings to my resources, and I hope that you have a super great Monday, and I will talk to you later. Bye.